Good afternoon. All right. So as he said, my name is Macheo Payne. I'm from Oakland. I'm a social work professor, and I'm the executive director for the Freedom School program at Lincoln. For over 20 years, I've worked with the Oakland Freedom School program, which is a summer reading program, 6 weeks long, that focuses on self-esteem and literacy for African American children. About 17 years ago, we took a group of students on a field trip from West Oakland to downtown Oakland to City Hall for a civics lesson. Lo and behold, the mayor was there to greet us. So he invited us into his office. He asked us a few questions about the program. Students told him, oh, it's a reading program where we learn about our history, we learn about our culture. The mayor asked, okay, how does that help your education? Do you think learning about your history and culture will help you in your education? The mayor, actually who's the governor right now, he had just been elected mayor of Oakland at the time, questioned Black children about learning about Black leaders in history if it had any relevance to their learning, as if the world was colorblind. But what he was most excited about as he brought us into his office was this new crime database that he had access to. And like a kid showing off a new toy at Christmas, he excitedly told the students how he could sort by various crimes, break-ins, robberies, to show the kids all the crime that happens in the community that they're from. He showed us robberies, burglaries, car break-ins, and then as we were leaving, he asked one of the kids, who was 9 years old, his name, and he said, here, you know what? Here's my business card. If you get stopped by the police, just show them this card and they'll let you go, right? So this experience illustrated key factors that surround Black students and the proliferation of the school-to-prison pipeline. And you can tell which generation I'm from. All right. When the mayor found out we were from West Oakland, he framed their school and their community as a place where crime happens. He forecast their impending contact with the criminal justice system as inevitable. Interestingly, he also framed the criminal justice process as biased, as if getting let go was as simple as having the right name on a business card and showing it to the officer. This story highlights the implicit impact of trauma and poverty for Black students in neighborhoods like West Oakland, where our best thinking as a society remains limited in reversing these conditions. I'm a social worker, and our best bet for dealing with trauma is therapy, focused on the child and how the child copes with that trauma. This leaves a Black child who is experiencing trauma in part as a result of their race, ill-prepared to navigate the trauma if it was experienced as a result of systemic and institutional racism. Let me tell you another story. On the last day of Freedom Schools in 2012, we had a mother come up to our staff and told us how much her daughter had grown in the 6 weeks. There it is. She started telling us how her daughter had witnessed a murder a year prior, and she had shut down completely. Didn't want to go outside, had shut down in school and from her peers, and didn't really like to engage or open up. And she, with tears now streaming down her face, told us how the program facilitated conversations that talked about the impact of violence in their community and the social factors that germinate such violence and the intersectionality of different social factors that impacted young people who were struggling with violence in their communities. And she told us that through our program and through facilitating those conversations that made it relevant to the scholars who are in the program, allowed her child to have a voice. What about addressing poverty? Well, our best guess for addressing poverty is case management. This leaves families unable to navigate inequalities that are based on race-based economic inequalities. In data from the Oakland Freedom Schools, students gain an average of 1 year gain in reading level in just 6 weeks. So a student who comes in at the second grade level and they're in the third grade will end the program at a third grade reading level in just 6 weeks. Thank you. This directly impacts the trajectory of a student who enters a program below reading level and leaves at grade level. And we know that Black students who are below reading level, grade level reading by third grade are more likely to be arrested than graduate. While this is very old news, there are very few efforts that focus on reversing this trend. The focus has been on transforming the system as if it were colorblind. In endeavoring to be colorblind, we actually cause more harm because we're ignoring patterns of discrimination instead of taking them head on. We also know Black students who are suspended one time in middle school are 9 times more likely to be arrested than students who are not suspended in middle school. This is relatively newer news, but again, the main intervention has been to change the discipline codes, as if the discipline codes are colorblind. Poor academic performance and a poor discipline record, coupled with community and family trauma, as well as generational poverty, all contribute to the school-to-prison pipeline. But to address these issues without acknowledging the racial bias of zero-tolerance policies, police in the schools, and disproportionate suspension of Black boys is poor practice. We focus on identity and culture as the central and most durable aspects of a Black child's life. Instead of saying to them, you're Black, so that means you're gonna have a host of problems and challenges in life because of systemic and institutional racism. No, we say you're Black, and that means you are in a wonderful position to learn about the rich and powerful legacy and heritage and culture that you have in this country. We say Black lives matter. We say Black teachers matter. We know that Black and brown students show better outcomes in reading when they have a Black and brown teacher. Black books matter. We also know that culturally relevant curriculum produces better performance in history and reading for Black and brown students. Black communities matter because so much of what they hear in society is that their community is nothing but a crime-ridden place that they need to escape. Someone once said, people don't care about what you know unless they know that you care. Our youth interpret every action by adults first by that measuring stick of caring. At Freedom Schools, we say, oh, and by the way, all of these things, culture, identity, and making positive connections with your community, support your life in a way that will help you overcome challenges in your life, in your family, in your community, and in the nation that you live in. With this approach, the impacts of poverty and trauma are better addressed from the perspective of their culture and identity being one that they can and should be proud of rather than ashamed of, and that this is materially demonstrated by the features of our program. Let's stop being colorblind and blind to the bias that prompts us to see the standard stereotypes of Black children, rather than seeing the rich legacy of fighting for freedom that the civil rights movement and now the Black Lives Matter movement represents. Because if you see Black children and instantly think about crime and police contact, and that their identity and history as Black children is irrelevant to their educational outlook, then nothing you offer will be helpful. Instead of being afraid of talking about race when dealing with trauma and poverty in our agencies and in our communities and for our African American families, we can be courageous and not only put race on the table at our agencies, but put it in the center of discussions on how best to support Black children and families. And so I challenge each and every one of you to consider race and the importance of identity as central to your efforts to address race and poverty for Black and brown families. Thank you.